A civilization without wheels or iron tools built structures that defy modern engineering. How did the Inca achieve such impossible feats? We are embarking on a journey to uncover 50 of their most baffling creations, from earthquake-proof fortresses to mountainside cities that function like living machines. By the end, you will understand why their lost technology continues to stump scientists. How did they move 100-ton stones over miles of rugged mountains? And why do their walls fit together so perfectly that not even a blade can slip between them? What does it truly take to build something that lasts for centuries? Rising above the ancient city of Cusco, the fortress of Sacsayhuaman presents a puzzle of staggering proportions. Its zigzagging walls are constructed from colossal blocks of limestone, some so immense they weigh more than 120 tons. That is heavier than a fully loaded space shuttle orbiter. Yet the sheer mass of these stones is only half the mystery. The other half lies in the breathtaking precision of their assembly. Built using a technique known as dry stone masonry, meaning no mortar was used, these blocks were cut and shaped to fit together so perfectly that for centuries, not even the thin blade of a razor can be forced between them. This is a level of craftsmanship that challenges our modern tools and understanding. The questions begin to mount the moment you stand before it. How did a civilization without the wheel or iron tools quarry these behemoths from distant mountains? How were they transported over miles of the most rugged terrain on the continent? And perhaps most baffling of all, how were they lifted and fitted into a jigsaw puzzle of stone that has withstood powerful earthquakes for centuries? These walls have seen tremors that flattened modern cities, yet they stand completely undisturbed, their seamless joints as tight as the day they were laid. This is not just ancient construction, it is a dialogue with time itself, a secret of stability that we are still struggling to decipher. The secret to Sacsayhuaman's unshakable strength lies in a three-dimensional puzzle of staggering complexity. This is not merely stacking blocks, it is a masterclass in a technique known as ashlar masonry, where every stone is an individual masterpiece. Each of these colossal blocks was painstakingly shaped to feature not one, but multiple, precisely calculated angles on every single side. Think of it not as a brick wall, but as a massive, three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle where every piece interlocks with its neighbors on all sides. This creates a structure that is not a collection of separate stones, but essentially a single, unified mass. When an earthquake strikes, the energy travels through the entire wall, making it sway as one solid piece instead of shaking individual blocks apart. The stones, locked in their intricate embrace, simply dance together and then settle back into perfect alignment. So how was this impossible precision achieved without modern tools? The most accepted theory points to an almost unimaginable investment of labor and skill. Workers likely used harder stone hammers to pound the rough limestone blocks into a general shape. Then the final hair's breadth fitting was achieved through a process of trial and error, perhaps using a sandy abrasive to grind the surfaces down, micrometer by micrometer, until the fit was flawless. They might have created wooden templates or used a system of strings and plumb bobs to guide this painstaking work. Yet, this conventional explanation still leaves gaps for some of the most perfect seams. This has led to more speculative, fascinating theories. Could the Inca have discovered a way to temporarily soften the stone, perhaps by applying intense heat from focused sunlight or even through sonic vibrations, allowing them to mold it like clay before it hardened again into its final, perfect form? While these ideas remain on the fringe of archaeology, they highlight just how baffling this achievement truly is. The result is a wall that is more than just strong. It is alive, a single breathing entity that has learned to move with the earth itself. The same genius for interlocking stone is echoed in the very foundations of a far more famous site. Perched between two towering peaks, Machu Picchu is a masterpiece of structural engineering that begins not with its walls, but deep within the mountain itself. Before a single stone was laid for the city above, Inca engineers had to solve a problem that still challenges builders today: how to construct on a steep, unstable ridge prone to landslides. Their solution was to literally reshape the mountain. They carved and leveled the entire crest, but this was not a simple scraping of the surface. They excavated down to the most stable bedrock, creating a deeply anchored foundation that would act as a unified platform. Beneath this platform, they engineered a hidden world, a complex network of drainage channels designed to catch and redirect the torrential rainwater that flows down the slopes. This subterranean system prevents water from pooling underneath the city, which would inevitably turn the ground to mud and send the entire mountainside sliding into the valley below. It is a built-in insurance policy that has worked flawlessly for more than 500 years, but the engineering does not stop at the city's edge. Flanking the urban center are hundreds of agricultural terraces that cascade down the cliffs. These are not simple steps cut into the hill. Each one is a sophisticated, self-contained structure. The Inca built them in layers, starting with a foundation of large stones, followed by a deep bed of gravel, then a layer of sandy soil, and finally a rich topsoil for cultivation. This complex stratification acts like a giant sponge, allowing excess water to drain down through the gravel layers, preventing the soil from becoming waterlogged and the terrace walls from bursting outward under the immense pressure. The retaining walls themselves are marvels, built with a slight inward tilt and fitted with drainage ports, ensuring they have held back the earth through countless storms. This is why Machu Picchu does not simply sit on the mountain. It is woven into it, a living part of the geology that has defied erosion and gravity for centuries. While the terraces managed the rain, the lifeblood of Machu Picchu flowed from a source hidden high in the jungle-clad mountains. An intricate water management system channeled fresh water from a natural spring more than a kilometer away, a feat of hydraulic engineering that rivals the city's stonework. Without pumps or pipes, the Inca relied solely on the unerring force of gravity to deliver this vital resource. The true genius of this system lies in its gradient, the precise slope of the stone channels that carried the water. Modern engineers calculate such gradients with laser levels and complex software, but the Inca achieved their perfect flow rate through sheer observational skill and painstaking trial and error. They built the channels with a consistent, gentle decline, just steep enough to keep the water moving and prevent stagnation, yet not so steep that it would gain destructive speed and erode the stone conduits. This delicate balance ensured a steady, reliable stream of water arrived in the city, day after day, year after year. This life-giving water was then artfully directed through a series of 16 ceremonial fountains, known as the Stairway of Fountains. These were not merely functional spouts, they were expressions of both practical necessity and spiritual belief. The water would flow from the first fountain, often reserved for the emperor or high priest, into the second, and then the third, creating a cascading chain that paralleled the social and spiritual hierarchy of the city. Each fountain was a place for collecting water for drinking, cooking, and irrigation, but it was also a sacred space for ritual and purification. The sound of the constantly flowing water would have been a constant, soothing presence, a literal manifestation of life and divine blessing woven into the daily rhythm of the city. This seamless integration of utility and spirituality is a hallmark of Inca design. Remarkably, after more than 5 centuries of silence, when archaeologists cleared the channels of accumulated soil and vegetation, water once again flowed through them. The system, built with an intuitive understanding of physics and landscape, still functions perfectly today, a timeless testament to the Incas' profound connection to and mastery of their environment. High above the city's fountains, another stone speaks a silent language of light and shadow. The Intihuatana, a name meaning the hitching post of the sun, is not a structure built upon the mountain but carved directly from it. This monolithic granite pillar, sculpted with breathtaking precision from the living bedrock of the summit, served as a sophisticated astronomical clock. Its four corners are aligned with the cardinal directions, while its central pillar, a precisely angled gnomon, acts as the heart of the device. On the two equinoxes, the sun sits directly over the equator, and on these days, the Intihuatana's central pillar casts no shadow at all at solar noon. It is a moment of perfect balance where the sun appears tethered to the earth. Conversely, during the solstices, the sun reaches its northernmost and southernmost points in the sky. The stone captures these extremes, its angled faces and the pillar casting shadows of specific, predictable lengths and directions. By meticulously observing these shifting patterns of light and darkness, Inca priests could mark the passage of time with uncanny accuracy, predicting the turning of the seasons essential for planting and harvesting. This was the empire's calendar, etched not on paper but in stone and sunlight. The profound mystery is how they achieved such precise celestial alignments. They possessed no telescopes, no magnetic compasses, no written records of complex mathematics as we know them. Their tools were observation, patience, and a deep generational knowledge of the sky. They likely used a series of stone markers or sighting points on the surrounding horizon, noting where the sun rose and set over specific mountain peaks throughout the year. Over decades, even centuries, they refined their understanding, translating cosmic movements into the immutable angles of the Intihuatana. The result is a machine that requires no moving parts, a perfect fusion of earthly stone and celestial mechanics that continues to mark time long after its creators have vanished. The Intihuatana's silent celestial dance finds a powerful earthly echo in the sheer physical audacity of Ollantaytambo. Here, the unfinished temple of the sun presents a different kind of mystery, one not of delicate astronomical precision, but of raw, monumental effort. The fortress walls are built from colossal blocks of pink rhyolite, a volcanic stone so hard it challenges modern diamond-tipped tools. Each of these monoliths weighs an astonishing 50 tons, the equivalent of a full herd of adult elephants. And this is where the puzzle becomes almost unbelievable. The quarry from which these stones were cut lies on a mountainside across the swirling, treacherous waters of the Urubamba River, and then up a steep, opposite slope to the temple site. So how did a civilization without wheels, pulleys, or draft animals move 50 tons of solid rock across a river valley and up a mountain? The most widely accepted theory involves an almost unimaginable mobilization of human labor. Archaeologists propose the Inca constructed massive earthen ramps, using thousands of workers hauling the stones on log rollers with ropes made from tough grasses. They might have even diverted the river itself to create a temporary causeway. Yet, even with this explanation, the logistics are staggering. The coordination required to move a single block without it crashing down the mountainside would have been a masterpiece of project management. This immense difficulty has understandably given rise to more speculative ideas. Some have wondered if the Inca possessed a lost knowledge of sound frequencies, using specific vibrations to somehow reduce the weight of the stone, making it easier to move. Others point to the stone's curious features, like the perfectly carved beveled edges and the strange, knob-like protrusions on their surfaces. Were these simply handles for ropes, or could they have been part of a more sophisticated lifting apparatus that we have yet to comprehend? The purpose of these precise carvings remains a hotly debated topic. Looking at these titanic stones, left forever in their unfinished state, we are left with a profound sense of both awe and unanswered questions. This is not just a temple, it is a frozen moment in a colossal construction project, a permanent testament to a will that defied gravity itself. But the stone giants of Ollantaytambo are only half the story. Below the fortress, the entire valley unfolds into a breathtaking landscape of agricultural engineering. The Incas did not merely build on this steep terrain, they fundamentally reshaped it, creating a cascading staircase of hundreds of terraces that climbed the mountain slopes. This was not just about creating flat land for farming, it was about mastering the environment itself. By constructing these terraces at different altitudes, they effectively manufactured a series of distinct microclimates. The lower, warmer terraces were perfect for growing maize, while the higher, cooler ones could support potatoes and other hardy tubers. This allowed them to cultivate a diverse and resilient food supply all within a single, compact valley, a feat of agricultural planning that ensured their survival. Yet, growing the food was only the first step. The true genius of their system is revealed by what they built next, high on the opposite hillsides. Scattered across the ridges above Ollantaytambo, you can see the distinct circular foundations of the kolkas, the state storehouses. Their location seems counterintuitive, placed far from the fields and high in the cold, windy air. But this was a deliberate and brilliant strategy. The constant wind and lower temperatures at that altitude acted as a giant natural refrigerator. The Incas designed these storehouses with deep stone foundations and sophisticated ventilation systems, often using strategically placed gaps in the walls to create a constant airflow that swept through the structures. This clever design prevented moisture from accumulating and kept the temperature consistently cool and dry. Inside, potatoes could be freeze-dried into chuño, a lightweight, durable food that could remain edible for years, sometimes even decades. This network of kolkas was not just a granary, it was a massive, state-run survival network. In times of drought or famine, these reserves could feed the entire population, and they also supplied the armies and workers that built the empire's monumental projects. It was a buffer against disaster, a logistical masterpiece that turned perishable crops into a permanent, strategic resource. The terraces fed the empire in the present, while the storehouses on the hills secured its future, proving that the true strength of the Inca lay as much in their foresight and organization as it did in their unmovable stones. Descending into the circular terraces of Moray feels like stepping into a colossal, man-made crater, an amphitheater built not for spectators but for plants. This is not a fortress or a temple, but a different kind of marvel altogether, a vast agricultural laboratory carved directly into the earth. The site consists of several of these enormous concentric circular depressions, the largest plunging an incredible 30 meters deep from the rim to the bottom. Walking from the highest terrace down to the lowest is not just a change in elevation, it is a journey through climates. The temperature difference from the warm, sun-exposed top to the cool, shaded bottom can be as much as 15 degrees Celsius, which is a staggering 27 degrees Fahrenheit. This single engineered basin could simulate the conditions found across an entire empire, from the warm coastal valleys to the chilly high-altitude plains. It effectively recreated over 20 distinct microclimates within a single, walkable area. The prevailing theory is that this was the Incas' premier agricultural research station. Here, master farmers could experiment with different crop varieties, testing which strains of maize, quinoa, or potatoes would thrive at specific temperatures and humidity levels. They could slowly acclimate a plant from the highlands to a warmer climate, or vice versa, essentially training crops to survive in new territories before introducing them to the empire's vast network of terraces. This was large-scale bioengineering, a systematic, scientific approach to securing their food supply that was centuries ahead of its time. The genius of Moray lies not in moving mountains of stone, but in moving entire climates, proving their mastery extended beyond engineering the land to engineering life itself. Just a short distance from the fortress of Sacsayhuaman lies a monument of an entirely different nature, one not built but unearthed. Cuenco is a sprawling complex of tunnels, altars, and channels, all carved with immense patience from a single, gigantic outcrop of living limestone. To walk through it is to navigate a labyrinth etched directly into the earth's bones. The entire site is a masterpiece of rock-cut architecture, where the Incas did not assemble their vision stone by stone, but instead revealed it by subtracting everything that was not part of their sacred design. The surface of the rock is a tapestry of intricate carvings, with zigzagging channels that crisscross the stone like a frozen river, leading to perfectly carved staircases that ascend to nowhere and ceremonial niches that seem to hold the silence of centuries. The purpose of these surface channels is a subject of quiet debate. Some archaeologists see them as part of a sophisticated drainage system, designed to channel rainwater away from the main ceremonial platform to prevent erosion. Yet their deliberate, almost artistic paths suggest a deeper, ritualistic function. It is easy to envision priests pouring offerings of chicha, a sacred maize beer, into these grooves, watching as the liquid traced a ceremonial path down the stone, a liquid sacrifice flowing into the earth. The mystery deepens significantly when you descend into the site's heart. A narrow, artificial cave leads to a hidden subterranean chamber. Inside, the air is cool and still. The walls are lined with more of those enigmatic channels, but here they wind and twist in a far more complex symbolic pattern. At the center of this chamber lies a massive stone altar carved directly from the bedrock. Was this a place for blood sacrifices, where the channels carried away the evidence of the most profound offerings to the gods? Or was it an amplification chamber where water or chicha flowing through these winding paths created specific, resonant sounds for rituals? The truth is that Cuenco likely served both purposes simultaneously. For the Inca, there was no separation between the practical and the spiritual. A water drainage system was not just functional, it was a way of honoring the earth by managing its gifts responsibly. A channel for sacrificial blood was also a part of the mountain's own circulatory system. This seamless fusion of engineering and belief is what makes Cuenco so profoundly haunting, a place where every carved groove tells a dual story of survival and devotion. Commanding a high ridge along the sacred road to Cusco, the Red Fortress of Pucapucara was far more than a simple military outpost. Its strategic position offered a panoramic view of the entire valley, a vital sentinel that could spot any approaching group, whether a friendly caravan or a potential threat from miles away. The complex itself is a maze of purpose, a carefully engineered puzzle of plazas, living quarters, intricate bathing chambers, and elevated watchtowers, all constructed from a distinctive rust-red limestone that gives the fortress its name. The masonry here is different from the perfect seams of Sacsayhuaman, built instead with a technique known as irregular polygonal masonry. The stones are multi-angled and varied in size, fitted together in a seemingly chaotic jigsaw that nonetheless creates an immensely strong and resilient wall, perfectly suited for a structure designed to withstand assault. Every feature of Pucapucara was engineered for control and communication. The stairways are narrow and steep, easily defended by a handful of soldiers against a much larger force. Access points were deliberately limited, forcing any attacker into fatal funnels where they could be met with a concentrated defense. But perhaps its most critical role was as a nerve center in the empire's vast communication network. From its highest towers, sentinels could watch for signal fires from neighboring posts, relaying messages across the empire at the speed of light. A single fire could signify a routine report, while a series of blazes could warn of an invasion, triggering a rapid military response across hundreds of miles of mountainous terrain. This fortress was the empire's early warning system, a fusion of strategic architecture and information technology that allowed the Inca to command their vast domains with astonishing speed and efficiency. The same reverence for water that flowed through Machu Picchu's fountains finds its purest expression at Tambamache. Known as the Bath of the Inca, this site is not a fortress or a city, but a sanctuary built for water itself. Nestled in a quiet fold of the hills, its beauty is one of understated perfection. The centerpiece is a series of exquisitely crafted terraced walls, built with the same fine ashlar masonry found in Cusco. From the top of these walls, water cascades down through a series of perfectly carved stone channels, emerging from a spring hidden deep within the earth. The water is eternally fresh and cold, flowing without pause for centuries. But the true marvel here is not just the presence of water, but its behavior. The system is designed with two primary outlets, and from these two separate points, the water flows with a constant, identical volume and force. This is not a coincidence of nature. It is a masterpiece of hydraulic engineering. To achieve this perfect balance, Inca engineers had to possess an intuitive, advanced understanding of fluid dynamics and pressure equilibrium. They somehow calculated the precise diameter and slope of the underground channels, ensuring that the water pressure was distributed evenly before it was split into the two visible streams. This created a harmonious, symmetrical flow that is as much a mathematical wonder as a spiritual one. For the Inca, water was the blood of the Earth Mother, Pachamama, and a place like Tambamache was a direct conduit to her life-giving power. The eternal, pure flow was not just a resource, it was a divine manifestation. This was a place of ritual purification and offerings, where the precision of the engineering served to honor the perfection of the natural world. The flawless stonework and the unwavering flow were both testaments to a civilization that sought not to conquer nature, but to listen to its rhythms and reflect them back in their most perfect form. In the heart of ancient Cusco, the Coricancha, or the Temple of the Sun, represented the absolute pinnacle of Inca engineering and artistry. Its foundation walls are a symphony in stone, curved and flowing with a grace that seems to defy the very nature of rock. This is considered the single finest example of Inca stonework ever created, a seamless fusion of curves and angles where every block is a masterpiece of geometry. The walls were not merely built, they were sculpted, with each stone painstakingly shaped to fit its neighbor in a three-dimensional embrace so perfect that the joints are virtually invisible. But this breathtaking masonry was only the foundation for an even greater spectacle. In its prime, these sublime stone walls were entirely sheathed in plates of solid, hammered gold, so that when the sun struck the temple, it would have blazed with an almost unbearable radiance, a literal sun on earth. The true test of this genius, however, came centuries later. Following their conquest, the Spanish built the Church of Santo Domingo directly atop these Inca foundations. Then, in the year 1650, a catastrophic earthquake struck the region. The Spanish convent, built with European masonry and mortar, crumbled into rubble. Yet when the dust settled, the curved Inca walls of the Coricancha stood completely untouched, without a single stone out of place. The secret to this resilience lies in the very perfection the Spanish had covered up. The walls were not only interlocked but also featured a subtle inward taper, making them dynamically stable. More importantly, the trapezoidal shape of every single niche, doorway, and window is an architectural marvel. Unlike a rectangular opening with its weak 90-degree corners, the trapezoid distributes stress evenly throughout the structure. When seismic forces shake the building, the energy is dissipated along the sloping sides, preventing the cracks that would instantly form in a right-angled frame. This was not just a stylistic choice, it was a profound understanding of physics carved into stone. The Coricancha was both a spiritual and structural anchor for the entire empire, a building where every line was a prayer and every angle was a calculation for eternity. Beyond its golden walls and earthquake-proof foundations, the Coricancha functioned as a colossal celestial clock. The entire complex was not just aligned to the cardinal directions, it was engineered to capture the sun itself at its most powerful moments. Specific windows and trapezoidal doorways were not placed at random, but were positioned with breathtaking precision to channel beams of light during the June and December solstices. On these pivotal days, the sun's rays would pierce the temple's interior, striking specific gold-plated niches and sacred idols with a focused, brilliant light. Imagine a single, perfect shaft of sunlight illuminating a golden statue of the sun god in Tai, or hitting a ceremonial altar at the exact moment the sun reached its highest or lowest point in the sky. This was not a happy coincidence, it was a meticulously planned astronomical event, a direct conversation between the architecture and the cosmos. The entire layout of the temple complex mirrored the Incas' cosmological map, with different sectors dedicated to various celestial bodies and divine entities. It was a physical model of their universe, built in stone and gold, where the movements of the sun, moon, and stars were not just observed but ritually enacted within its walls. This made the Coricancha the ultimate cosmological hub, the axis around which the entire empire's spiritual and agricultural life revolved. The precision required to achieve these alignments over such a vast architectural scale is staggering, suggesting a deep, generational knowledge of astronomy that was literally set in stone, a perfect fusion of celestial science and divine worship that guided a civilization from its very center. While the Coricancha was a permanent anchor of stone, another type of Inca marvel was deliberately ephemeral, designed to be reborn every single year. Stretched across a dizzying chasm of the Apurimac River Canyon, the Huachuaca rope bridge is the last of its kind, a living artifact that defies time not through permanence but through renewal. This is not a static monument, it is a cycle, an annual ceremony where engineering and community become one. For over 5 centuries, the same ritual has unfolded. 4 local communities gather, each with a sacred duty, to weave an entirely new bridge from a single, humble material, Q-Hoya grass. They harvest this tough, resilient grass from the high Andes, and the process begins with a rhythmic, communal dance of creation. Families sit together, twisting the dried grass into thin cords, then braiding these cords into larger ropes, and finally, twisting those ropes into 6 massive primary cables, each as thick as a human torso. The true test of engineering begins over the chasm itself. Using the old, fraying bridge as a precarious scaffold, the weavers work from both sides of the canyon, hauling the 3 foundational cables across. These are anchored to ancient stone abutments, a direct physical link to the Inca past. Then, with breathtaking skill, men balance over the void, using the 2 bottom cables as a base and the 2 upper ones as handrails. They weave the bridge's floor and sides simultaneously, creating a dense, mesh-like web that tightens and strengthens with every cross thread. The result is a structure that is both flexible and incredibly strong, capable of swaying with the mountain winds without breaking. This is organic engineering at its purest, a sustainable marvel that has lasted for centuries not because it was built to endure, but because the knowledge and the community to rebuild it have never been broken. The bridge itself is temporary, but the act of building it is eternal, a testament to a civilization that understood its greatest strength was not in the stones it left behind, but in the bonds it forged across generations. Far to the south of Cusco, the temple complex of Rakchai shatters all preconceptions of Inca architecture. Here stands the Temple of Huaracocha, a structure so audacious in its design it seems to belong to another world. Unlike any other Inca site, its central feature was a colossal wall built not of fitted stone but of rammed earth, soaring an estimated 2 stories high. This adobe giant, however, did not stand alone. It was supported and flanked by a line of towering cylindrical stone columns, a feature completely unique in the Inca architectural record. The engineering challenge was immense. How do you prevent a massive, heavy adobe wall, vulnerable to rain and seismic shock, from crumbling under its own weight? The Inca solution was a masterstroke of hybrid engineering. They first built a formidable foundation and lower walls of classic, perfectly fitted ashlar masonry. This stone base provided a stable, earthquake-resistant platform that could also effectively manage groundwater, preventing capillary action from drawing moisture up into the vulnerable adobe above. Then they erected those remarkable cylindrical columns, which acted as immense buttresses, anchoring the tall earthen wall and providing lateral stability against the powerful winds that sweep across the high plain. This fusion of sturdy stone and sculpted earth represents a bold architectural experiment, a localized solution to a specific engineering problem that demonstrates the Inca capacity for innovation, not just standardization. Surrounding this singular temple are hundreds of kolkas, identical storehouses arranged in neat, military-like rows. Their presence in such density reveals the site's dual purpose. Rakchai was both a major religious center dedicated to the creator god Viracocha and a critical economic hub, a granary of the gods. The offerings and tithes gathered from the surrounding region would have been stored here, a tangible link between divine favor and material wealth. This seamless blend of the spiritual and the utilitarian, of a radical temple design backed by the pragmatic logic of a warehouse district, shows an empire thinking on a grand scale, where faith and logistics were two sides of the same perfectly engineered coin. High on a terraced hillside, the royal estate of Tepon reveals a different kind of Inca genius, one that speaks in the language of flowing water. This is not a fortress of stone, but a symphony of hydraulics, a masterpiece designed to celebrate and command the very essence of life. The entire complex is an intricate network of stone canals, fountains, and aqueducts that cascade down the steep slope with breathtaking elegance. What appears as a beautiful garden is in fact a highly sophisticated engineering laboratory, a working model of water management principles that sustained an empire. The water arrives from a natural spring high on the mountain, captured and channeled with an unerring sense of purpose. The canals are not simple ditches, they are carefully engineered conduits, their widths and depths calculated to maintain a consistent flow rate. As you follow the water's path, you witness something remarkable. The main channel deliberately splits into two perfectly equal streams, only to merge back together further down the hill. This was not a random design, it was a deliberate demonstration of fluid control. By splitting and merging the flow, the Inca engineers could manage the water's speed and pressure, preventing erosion in one section while ensuring adequate supply in another. It is a dynamic, living system that balances itself with the quiet precision of a Swiss watch. And at the heart of this system are the fountains. These are not mere decorations. Each one is a functional marvel, a stone outlet where water bursts forth with a consistent, graceful arc, a testament to the perfect pressure equilibrium achieved across the entire network. The most astonishing part is that these fountains, built over 5 centuries ago, still function exactly as intended today. The water flows with the same vigor, the same perfect control, as it did when Inca nobility walked these terraces. This leads to the compelling theory that Tepon was more than a royal retreat. It was a living classroom and a testbed. Here, master engineers could experiment with gradient, channel design, and fountain mechanics, perfecting techniques that would then be applied across the empire, from the terraces of Machu Picchu to the farmlands of the Sacred Valley. It was a display of power, certainly, but a power defined not by domination, but by harmony, proving that the ultimate control of nature lies in understanding its rhythms so deeply that you can make it dance. The same celestial intelligence that aligned the Coricancha with the sun extended far beyond its golden walls, reaching up to the very hilltops encircling the sacred city. These high ridges were once crowned by the Sukankas, mysterious astronomical pillars that have long since vanished from the landscape. Imagine them not as simple stone markers, but as tall, slender towers, precisely positioned to act as sightlines against the rising and setting sun. From the central temple, a priest could look out and see the sun crest a specific peak, its first light perfectly framed between two of these distant pillars. This was not a single instrument, but a giant, landscape-sized calendar etched across the horizon. The engineering challenge here was twofold, requiring both astronomical precision and geographic mastery. First, the Inca astronomers needed generations of observation to note the exact points on the horizon where the sun rose and set on the solstices and equinoxes. Then, teams of engineers and surveyors had to translate that celestial map onto the rugged earth. They would have traversed the steep slopes using simple tools like sighting poles and perhaps even water levels to determine the exact geographic positions for each pillar, ensuring the sight lines back to the Coricancha were flawless. The entire valley of Cusco became a colossal observatory where the sun itself moved across a fixed stone grid, telling the people not just the time of day, but the critical turning points of the year. The arrival of the June solstice sunrise over a specific Sukanka would signal the time to begin the harvest, while the December solstice marked a new planting cycle. This system wove the cosmos directly into the rhythm of daily life, a seamless fusion of sky, stone, and survival that guided an empire from the high places surrounding its heart. The fortress of Pisac clings to a mountainside so steep it seems to defy the very possibility of cultivation. Yet here, the Inca did not just farm the land, they reinvented it, carving a vast green staircase of terraces that sweep across the cliff face in breathtaking curves. This is agricultural engineering on a colossal scale, where every terrace is a self-contained, life-giving structure. The retaining walls are the key to this miracle, and their construction reveals a profound understanding of geotechnical principles. They were not simply stacked on the surface. Each wall begins with massive foundational stones, keyed deep into the mountain's stable subsoil, anchoring the entire structure to the living rock and preventing it from sliding downhill under the immense weight of the soil and water. Above this foundation, the walls are built with a deliberate backward tilt, a subtle but critical feature that uses gravity to push the structure inward, making it even more stable against the constant pressure from behind. But the true genius lies in what you cannot see. Behind each stone wall is a complex, layered filtration system. The Inca filled the space with a deep bed of crushed rock and gravel, followed by a layer of sandy soil, and finally a rich, organic topsoil. This subterranean design acts like a giant sponge and a drain. When the heavy Andean rains fall, the water does not pool and saturate the soil. Instead, it percolates down through the topsoil, is filtered by the sand, and then drains freely through the gravel layer, exiting through small, strategically placed ports in the retaining walls. This prevents waterlogging, which would kill the crops, and more importantly, it relieves the hydrostatic pressure that would otherwise burst the walls apart. The result is a perfectly balanced system of moisture and stability. The engineering was so precise that the Inca could even customize each terrace for specific crops. They would adjust the soil depth and composition, creating deeper, richer beds for thirsty maize on the wider, sunnier terraces and shallower, well-drained soils for hardy potatoes on the higher, cooler ones. Walking among these terraces is to witness a dialogue with gravity itself, a centuries-old solution to erosion that turned a barren cliff into a fertile, enduring garden. While Pisac's terraces mastered the mountain's exterior, its summit reveals a city carved directly into the sky. The Intihuatana complex here is not a single stone, but an entire ceremonial center sculpted from a single, living granite outcrop. Every altar, every bench, every winding channel was revealed by the patient removal of everything that was not part of the sacred design. At its heart stands the Intihuatana pillar itself, a stark, elegant gnomon precisely angled to capture the sun's journey. Its four sides are aligned to the cardinal directions, and on the equinoxes, the pillar casts no shadow at noon, a moment of perfect celestial balance. But the true genius of this complex is its integration with the city sprawling below it. The layout of Pisac is a masterclass in logical urban planning, a multi-leveled society etched into the cliffside. The city is clearly divided into distinct districts, each with a specific purpose, all connected by a labyrinth of stone stairways and narrow tunnels that burrow through the bedrock. At the highest point, surrounding the Intihuatana, lies the sacred religious sector, a place reserved for priests and royalty. Just below this, you find the exclusive residential quarter for the nobility, with homes built from finely cut ashlar masonry, their trapezoidal doorways and niches identical to those in Cusco. Further down the slope, the military barracks and more utilitarian housing for artisans and farmers were constructed, using strong, functional polygonal masonry. This vertical zoning was a physical manifestation of the social hierarchy, with the most sacred and important spaces closest to the heavens. Flowing through every level of this intricate city, fresh water was a constant presence. A sophisticated network of stone channels, following a meticulously calculated gradient, brought water from a high mountain spring, distributing it to ceremonial fountains, residential areas, and the agricultural terraces below. This was not a haphazard settlement. It was a premeditated, engineered environment where every element, from the grand temple to the humblest home, was part of an interconnected system. The placement of buildings, the alignment of streets to catch the sun, and the omnipresent sound of flowing water all speak of a civilization that viewed city building not as a conquest of nature, but as a sacred act of weaving human life into the immutable fabric of the mountain and the sky. To truly comprehend the scale of ambition at Ollantaytambo, you must journey across the river to its source, the Cachicota Quarry. Here, the mountain itself bears the scars of this monumental undertaking. The sheer rock face is pockmarked with thousands of extraction points, a landscape half carved away to supply the temple on the opposite slope. This was a factory of stone, and the first mystery is how they even pried these 50-ton monoliths from the earth. Without iron tools, workers likely used a combination of fire and water, heating the pink rhyolite with controlled blazes and then dousing it with cold water to create thermal shock, causing the rock to fracture along natural fault lines. Then, using harder stone hammers, they would have painstakingly shaped the blocks into their rough, colossal forms. But extraction was only the beginning of an almost impossible journey. The path from the quarry to the river is a steep, treacherous descent. The Inca engineers transformed this mountainside into a complex logistical route. They carved wide, stone-paved roads and constructed massive earthen ramps. For the steepest sections, they may have created slick, mud-lubricated slides, using gravity to coax the stones downward in a controlled, terrifying slide. Teams of hundreds, perhaps thousands of workers would have used ropes made from braided leather and grass to guide the blocks, preventing them from careening off the cliff and shattering in the valley below. The air would have been thick with the sound of shouting, grinding stone, and the immense strain of human effort. Then came the ultimate barrier, the raging Vilcanota River. How do you move a herd of stone elephants across a powerful, unpredictable current? The most plausible theory suggests the Inca used their mastery of hydraulics to temporarily divert the river's flow, creating a dry, or at least shallow, causeway across the riverbed. They could have constructed cofferdams, temporary walls made of earth and reeds, to hold back sections of the water, allowing the teams to haul the stones across the exposed river bottom. Another compelling idea involves the construction of giant, buoyant reed rafts. The stones, with their carefully carved, beveled edges, could have been floated across, a precarious but possible solution. Yet, even with these theories, the sheer physics of the operation boggles the mind. The coordination, the understanding of leverage and buoyancy, and the sheer force of collective will required to move just one of these blocks across that churning water is a testament to an organizational genius that we are still struggling to fully map out. The quarry at Cachicota is not just a hole in a mountain. It is the starting point of one of history's greatest logistical puzzles, a frozen moment of audacious human endeavor. Perched on a high, wind-swept plateau, the storehouses of Chinchero turn the harsh climate into a tool for survival. While the terraces below produced the food, these circular structures, known as kolkas, were the empire's strategic larder, designed to make that food last for years. Their placement was a stroke of genius, deliberately situated on this cold, exposed plain to harness the relentless wind. The kolkas are not simple silos, but sophisticated, self-regulating cooling systems. Their circular shape is key, as it presents no flat surfaces for the wind to push against, allowing the air to flow smoothly around the entire structure. This constant swirling breeze, combined with the high-altitude chill, created a massive natural refrigerator. Inside, the engineering was just as clever. The floors were often built with a deep layer of gravel for drainage, and the walls featured carefully placed ventilation gaps. This design ensured a continuous flow of cold, dry air throughout the interior, wicking away any moisture that would cause spoilage. This is where the humble potato was transformed into chuño. Families would lay out their potatoes on the frozen ground, letting the cold nights freeze them and the daytime sun partially thaw them over several cycles. This process, repeated again and again, completely dehydrated the potatoes, turning them into lightweight, rock-hard chuño that could be stored for a decade or more without losing its nutritional value. This was not merely preservation, it was alchemy, turning a perishable tuber into a permanent, portable calorie. This network of storehouses was the backbone of the empire's security. In times of drought or famine, these reserves could be distributed to feed the population, preventing disaster. More strategically, they supplied the immense armies and the legions of workers building projects like Sacsayhuaman and Ollantaytambo. An army, as the saying goes, marches on its stomach, and the colcas of Chinchero ensured the Inca army could march anywhere at any time. This was food security on an imperial scale, a brilliant logistical solution that turned the challenge of a cold climate into the very thing that sustained a civilization. High on the windswept plains of the central Andes, the sprawling city of Huánuco Pampa was an administrative engine carved from stone and earth. This was not a fortress in the traditional sense, but a different kind of stronghold, one of absolute control. Its power was expressed not through towering walls, but through a masterful design that dictated movement, ceremony, and economy from the moment a traveler arrived. At the city's physical and symbolic heart lay a vast central plaza, so immense it could hold thousands of people. This open space was the stage for the empire's most potent tools of rule, mass ritual, and public spectacle. Here, the Inca would host lavish feasts, distributing food and chicha beer from the state storehouses to foster loyalty and display the boundless generosity of the state. But this generosity was a carefully calculated exchange for labor and allegiance. Rising from the center of this great plaza was the Ushnu, a towering, multi-tiered ceremonial platform. This was the literal and figurative seat of power. From its summit, the Inca ruler or his governor would preside over these gatherings, visible to every single person in the plaza. The Ushnu was more than a stage, it was an instrument of political theater. Its strategic elevation allowed the ruling elite to be seen and heard, transforming a human leader into an almost divine figure silhouetted against the sky. The platform also likely served as an astronomical observatory and a point for pouring liquid offerings like chicha directly into the earth, symbolically feeding Pachamama and cementing the bond between the ruler, the people, and the gods. This was control through orchestrated awe, where architecture amplified authority. Flanking this ceremonial core were the true muscles of the empire, row upon row of identical circular storehouses. Thousands of these colcas covered the surrounding hillsides, a visible promise of security and a stark reminder of who held the keys to survival. Their sheer number was a clear statement. The state's wealth was vast, organized, and ever watchful. This entire system was connected by an engineered road system that sliced through the city with geometric precision. The main Inca road, the Cuhapac Ñan, ran directly into Huánuco Pampa, but it did not meander. It was channeled through specific, narrow gateways in the outer walls. These gates were the ultimate choke points, forcing all traffic into controlled corridors where state officials could monitor who and what entered, taxing goods and conscripting labor as needed. The city's design left no room for accident or rebellion. Resident sectors were laid out in a strict grid, separating nobility from artisans and mitta laborers. Every path led to the central plaza, every view was dominated by the Ashnu, and every need was met by the state's endless reserves. Huánuco Pampa was a machine for governing, a physical manifestation of the Inca mind, where control was achieved not merely by force, but by designing an environment where compliance was the most logical and rewarding path. Perched on a remote ridge even more inaccessible than its famous sibling, Choqquequirau reveals a different facet of Inca ambition. Known as the Cradle of Gold, this sister city to Machu Picchu is a testament to the empire's reach, built on a sheer-sided spur high above the roaring Apurimac River. Its most breathtaking feature is a stunning cascade of agricultural terraces, but these are not merely functional. An entire section of the slope is adorned with a series of white stone llamas, carefully inlaid into the terrace walls using pale quartzite. These are not crude drawings, but elegant, life-size depictions, a permanent herd grazing on the mountainside. The precision of the stonework here is exceptional, each white stone meticulously shaped and fitted into the darker retaining wall to create a clean, enduring image. This fusion of art and agriculture suggests these terraces were more than just farms. They were a ceremonial landscape, a place where the empire honored the animals that provided wool, meat, and transport across the high Andes. But sustaining such a city in this vertical wilderness required a mastery of water equal to that of Machu Picchu. The lifeblood of Choqquequirau flowed through an intricate network of stone-lined channels and fountains that snaked across the precipitous terrain. The engineering challenge here was magnified by the extreme remoteness. Every piece of stone for the channels, every tool, every ounce of supplies had to be carried up tortuous paths by human labor alone. The channels themselves are marvels of patient craftsmanship, their joints fitted tightly to prevent precious water from leaking into the dry mountain soil. They follow a gravity-fed path with an unerring gradient, capturing water from distant springs and directing it to ceremonial baths, residential sectors, and finally, to the roots of the crops on the terraces. The entire system is a symphony of liquid logic, a hydraulic network that turned a barren ridge into a self-sufficient sanctuary. To stand at Choqquequirau is to understand that the Inca impulse to build was not diminished by distance or difficulty. It was amplified by it, creating a refuge of stunning beauty in the heart of the untamed mountains. These ceremonial platforms were not merely stages, they were the beating heart of imperial control, a nexus of political power, spiritual belief, and hydraulic engineering. The Ashnu was a pyramidal structure often built in precise, ascending tiers of perfectly fitted stone. At its summit sat a single, intricately carved stone throne, a literal seat of power reserved for the Sapa Inca, the emperor himself. From this elevated position, he became a living god, visible to every single person gathered in the vast plaza below. His voice, possibly amplified by the structure's acoustics, would carry across the silent, awestruck crowd during grand ceremonies. But the platform's design served a purpose far deeper than political theater. Integrated directly into the stonework of the throne or the platform floor was a sophisticated system of shallow channels and basins. During the most sacred rituals, the Sapa Inca or the high priests would pour offerings of chicha, the sacred maize beer or pure water, into these carved conduits. The liquid would then flow through the channels, tracing a deliberate path across the stone before disappearing into a small, central hole that plunged directly into the earth. This was not a random act, it was a profound hydraulic ritual, a symbolic act of feeding Pachamama, the Earth Mother. The liquid, a representation of life itself, was channeled back into the womb of the world, completing a cycle of reciprocity. The earth provided the water and the maize, and the Inca returned this bounty as a sacred offering through the engineered veins of the Ashnu. This fusion of political stage, religious altar, and hydraulic device in a single structure is a quintessential example of the Inca worldview. Power was not just about command, it was about maintaining balance. The emperor's authority was legitimized not only by his lineage, but by his role as the chief intermediary between the people and the divine, a role physically enacted through the engineered flow of liquid offerings into the very ground beneath their feet. The Huachuca Bridge is not a solitary wonder, but a surviving example of a technology that once connected an entire empire. This single hand-woven span was part of a vast network of suspension bridges that leapt across the deepest canyons of the Andes, some stretching over 45 meters from one sheer cliff to another. Imagine the sheer impossibility of crossing such a gap without modern materials. The Inca solution was one of breathtaking ingenuity, using the very fibers of the land itself. They braided cables from tough, resilient grasses and in some cases from the supple fibers of the maguey plant, creating ropes as thick as a man's torso. The strength did not come from a single, massive rope, but from the collective power of hundreds of smaller, meticulously braided cords twisted together into a set of foundational cables. The engineering, however, began long before the weaving. On either side of the chasm, Inca stonemasons would construct colossal stone abutments, massive platforms keyed deep into the living bedrock. These were not simple piles of rock, they were permanent, unmovable anchors, engineered to withstand the immense tension and shifting loads of a bridge that would sway and bounce with every footstep and gust of wind. Once the main cables were hauled across the gap and secured to these stone anchors, the true artistry began. Weavers would work from both sides, using the two bottom cables as the floor and the upper ones as handrails. They wove a dense, mesh-like deck of smaller ropes, creating a web that grew stronger and tighter with every cross thread. The resulting structure was a masterpiece of dynamic engineering. Its inherent flexibility was its greatest strength, allowing it to dissipate the energy of wind and the movement of travelers, swaying with the forces of nature instead of fighting them. This network of organic bridges was the circulatory system of the Inca state. Without them, the empire's famous messengers, the chasquis, could never have sprinted across impossible terrain, relaying a message from Quito to Cusco in a matter of days. Armies could move with stunning speed, and llama caravans carrying goods and tribute could flow from one province to another. These fragile-looking spans of woven grass were in fact the critical threads that bound a mountain empire together, turning isolated peaks and valleys into a single, unified realm. These woven bridges and carved stairways were all part of a single, unifying vision, a terrestrial network that stitched the empire together across impossible terrain. The Huachuca, the Great Inca Road, was a 40,000-kilometer-long declaration of intent, a refusal to be limited by the Earth's most brutal geography. Its most astonishing features are not the long, straight stretches across the plains, but the places where the mountains themselves were forced to yield. Where a cliff face presented a sheer, unbroken wall, Inca engineers did not build a precarious ledge. They carved a permanent staircase directly into the living rock. The stairway at Huayna is a breathtaking example, a single, continuous flight of nearly 3,000 steps that ascends a near vertical mountainside. Each step is not a loose stone, but an integral part of the mountain, painstakingly pecked and ground from the granite bedrock. This was not a temporary fix, it was a permanent solution designed to withstand centuries of foot traffic and torrential rains. The engineering challenge was immense, requiring an intimate understanding of the stone's composition and fracture lines to carve steps that would not crumble under the constant load. In other places, where a long, winding detour around a mountain spur would have cost days of travel, the Inca chose the most direct path straight through the obstacle. They bored tunnels directly through solid rock, using stone hammers and patient, persistent grinding with abrasive sand. They carved passageways wide enough for a troop of soldiers or a llama train to pass through single file. These were not rough caves, but carefully engineered tubes with smoothed walls and graded floors to ensure safe, all-weather passage. Creating these tunnels required an advanced understanding of structural integrity to prevent collapse, and a surveyor's eye to ensure the tunnel met its exit point on the other side of the mountain with perfect alignment. This network of carved stairways and rock-hewn tunnels transformed the Andes from a series of impenetrable barriers into a connected realm. A Chasqui messenger could sprint up a stone staircase instead of scrambling up a dangerous scree slope, and an imperial caravan could march through a mountain instead of descending into a deep valley and climbing back out. It was terrestrial engineering on a grand, strategic scale, a testament to a civilization that viewed the entire continent not as a collection of separate landscapes, but as a single, unified domain to be mastered from the ground up. Beneath the feet of the Chasqui runners and the llama caravans, the Inca roads were engineered miracles in their own right. These were not simple dirt paths worn into the landscape, but multi-layered structures built to outlast the centuries. The entire system began with a deep and stable foundation, a trench dug down to the most solid subsoil and filled with large, heavy stones. This foundational layer acted like the root system of a giant tree, preventing the road from shifting or sinking, even on the steep, unstable slopes of the Andes. But the true test of their genius came with the rain. In a climate known for torrential downpours, a simple path would have quickly eroded into a muddy, impassable ravine. The Inca solution was a network of hidden arteries. They constructed stone-lined drainage culverts beneath the road surface, channels designed to capture water and redirect it safely off the path and down the mountainside. In areas prone to landslides, they built formidable retaining walls that held back the earth, ensuring the road remained clear and stable. The surface itself was meticulously tailored to the environment. In the wet highlands and cloud forests, the roads were paved with large, flat stones fitted tightly together. This created a solid, impermeable surface that could withstand constant moisture without turning to mud. In the drier coastal regions, they used a different approach, surfacing the roads with a compacted layer of crushed gravel and clay, which provided a firm, fast-drying track for travel. Perhaps the most sophisticated touch was the road's subtle camber. The Inca engineered the surface to be slightly convex, higher in the center and gently sloping down to the edges. This clever curvature meant that when rain fell, it did not pool in the middle of the path. Instead, it immediately ran off to the sides where the drainage culverts were waiting to carry it away. This single feature, a technique modern road builders still use today, is a primary reason why so many of these ancient highways remain perfectly walkable after more than 500 years. They were not just routes for travel, they were permanent sculptures of the land, designed to work in harmony with the water that sought to destroy them. Perched precariously on the steep slopes of Picchu, the ruins of Inca Empire demand a journey as vertical as the knowledge they were built to capture. This is not a sprawling city, but a delicate, high-altitude instrument, its semi-circular terraces cupped towards the sky like a stone ear listening to the cosmos. The structures here are unique, defined by a series of perfectly aligned windows and sightlines carved through the masonry. Each opening is a precise aperture, a narrow window onto the universe framed by immaculate stonework. The prevailing theory is that Inca Empire served as a sophisticated astronomical observatory, a dedicated laboratory for tracking the sun, moon, and the glittering tapestry of the southern sky. Its most compelling alignment is with the Southern Cross, a constellation of profound spiritual significance to the Inca. From this specific vantage point, at a specific time of year, the cruciform stars would have been perfectly centered within a stone window, marking a pivotal moment in the celestial calendar. The sheer physical challenge of building at this altitude underscores the importance of their quest. Every stone, every tool had to be carried up the near-vertical footpaths of Picchu, a testament to the sheer will required to get closer to the heavens. Why commit such immense effort for a handful of small buildings? The answer lies in the Incas' sacred geography, where the landscape itself was a living map of the cosmos. A mountain was not just a mountain, it was a celestial marker. By building Inca on this specific peak and aligning its windows with specific stars, they were forging a permanent bond between the earth and the sky. This was more than stargazing, it was a form of cosmic architecture, stitching the movements of the heavens directly into the stone heart of the Andes. The precision achieved here without lenses or written charts speaks of an advanced, intuitive understanding of patterns that guided every aspect of their world, from planting crops to ruling an empire. This architectural resilience was not a matter of luck, but a deliberate science embedded into every structure. The Inca did not just build strong walls, they built walls designed to move. At the core of this anti-seismic genius is the principle of the trapezoid. Look at any Inca doorway, window, or niche, and you will see that the shape is never a perfect rectangle. The sides are always angled inward as they rise, creating a wider base and a narrower top. Why is this so revolutionary? A rectangle with its 4 90-degree corners is inherently weak. When an earthquake shakes the ground, the energy concentrates at those sharp corners, causing them to crack and ultimately leading to the collapse of the entire opening. The trapezoid, however, has no weak points. Its sloping sides distribute the seismic energy evenly throughout the entire structure, allowing the force to flow through it without creating a fatal fracture. It is an architectural form that embraces movement rather than resisting it. This principle extends to the walls themselves, which were almost always built with a subtle inward slope, lowering the entire structure's center of gravity and making it far more difficult to topple. But the true magic lies in the stones. The polygonal masonry, with its multi-angled blocks, creates what modern engineers call a living wall. Unlike a wall built with uniform bricks and rigid mortar, which is brittle and will shatter under stress, the Inca wall is a dynamic, interlocking system. Each stone is locked in place by its neighbors on all sides, but the joints between them are not rigid. They possess a minute, intentional flexibility. When an earthquake strikes, the entire wall is designed to sway as a single, unified mass. The stones shift and grind against each other, absorbing and dissipating the destructive energy. Then, when the shaking stops, gravity simply pulls each uniquely shaped block back into its original, perfectly fitted position. The stones dance, and when the music of the tremor ends, they settle back into their eternal embrace. This is a technology that modern engineers are only now beginning to fully appreciate and attempt to replicate in base isolated buildings. The Inca, without a written language or modern physics, engineered their structures not to be rigid and unyielding, but to be alive, to move in harmony with the living earth they so deeply revered. The stones of the Inca world were not merely seen, they were heard. Across their empire, from the high mountain sanctuaries to the sacred plazas, sound itself was sculpted with the same precision as their masonry. At certain sites, the architecture functions as a giant stone instrument, manipulating acoustics in ways that defy simple explanation. In the labyrinthine depths of Chavín de Huanta, a ceremonial center that deeply influenced later Inca culture, narrow stone canals act as sonic conduits. A conch shell trumpet blown in one of these underground galleries does not simply echo. Its sound is channeled and projected throughout the entire complex, creating a disembodied, omnipresent call that seems to emanate from the temple itself. This is not a random effect of the cave, but a carefully engineered auditory illusion designed to disorient and awe a ritual participant. The same principle of acoustic mastery is found within the walls of Machu Picchu. In the Temple of the Sun, a simple hand clap does not produce a single, fading echo. Instead, it generates a cascade of distinct reverberations, a staccato response that seems to come from multiple directions at once. The precise angles of the stone walls and the unique geometry of the chambers break up the sound waves, bouncing them along calculated paths to create this multi-layered auditory phenomenon. Why would a civilization without electronic amplification devote such effort to shaping sound? The answer likely lies in the power of ritual. In a society where oral tradition and ceremonial chant were paramount, the ability to project a priest's voice across a crowded plaza without shouting would have been seen as divine. Imagine a shaman speaking in a normal tone from the Ashnu platform. Their words carried clearly to thousands of listeners gathered below, their voice seemingly amplified by the stones themselves. This would have been a profound demonstration of supernatural favor, a direct channel to the gods. The strategic placement of water channels near these acoustic spots adds another layer of genius, as the constant, soothing sound of flowing water could have been used to mask secret ceremonies from the general populace, while the engineered echoes made sure the intended sacred sounds were heard with perfect, awe-inspiring clarity. This was not an accident of construction, it was the architecture of belief, designed to make the very air speak with the voice of the divine. These same principles of agricultural mastery unfold on a breathtaking scale at Patalacta, a symphony of terraces gracefully curving along the floor of the sacred valley. Approaching it along the ancient Inca trail, you do not see a fortress or a temple, but a landscape that has been thoughtfully, tenderly remade by human hands. The terraces here are not just functional steps, they are vast, elegant arcs that mirror the natural amphitheater of the surrounding mountains, a perfect fusion of geometry and geology. The Inca did not fight the shape of this land, they listened to it, and then they improved upon it. The engineering ambition was staggering, involving the movement of earth and stone on a scale we would today call a massive public works project. They effectively reshaped the entire valley floor, constructing a system of hundreds of perfectly level terraces that stepped down towards the river. This was not merely about creating flat farmland, it was a holistic solution to a fundamental environmental threat, flooding. During the fierce Andean rainy season, water would cascade down from the high peaks, threatening to inundate the valley and wash away the precious topsoil. The Inca response was to build a landscape-scale sponge. The terraces, with their deep, layered construction of stone, gravel, and soil, acted as a massive, distributed reservoir. They slowed the torrential rush of water, allowing it to percolate down through the soil layers rather than raging across the surface. This process recharged the groundwater and prevented the destructive erosion that would have otherwise scoured the valley bare. At the same time, the intricate stonework of the retaining walls included hidden drainage ports, ensuring that any excess water was safely channeled away without building up enough pressure to collapse the structures. The result was a perfectly balanced hydrological system, a self-regulating environment where every drop of rain was captured, stored, and put to use. This was environmental engineering at its most profound, a demonstration that the greatest structures are not always vertical monuments, but sometimes the horizontal, living canvases that feed a civilization. To stand above Patalacta is to witness a dialogue with water itself, a centuries-old agreement between humanity and the elements that turned a vulnerable river valley into an enduring, life-giving garden. This timeless endurance hinges on a simple yet profound principle, the absence of mortar itself. While modern construction relies on cement to bind rigid, uniform blocks, that very rigidity becomes its greatest weakness. Mortar is brittle, and when the earth shakes, it cracks, shattering the bonds that hold a wall together. The Inca approach was the opposite. Their perfect, mortarless joints were not a bond, but a carefully engineered space for movement. Achieving that perfect fit was a marathon of patience. The process likely began with a master mason selecting two stones. Using harder stone hammers, workers would pound one block into a rough shape. Then came the true test of skill. They would place the shaped stone against its neighbor, examining the contact points. Where high spots prevented a tight fit, they would meticulously grind the surface using sand and water as an abrasive, perhaps with a flat stone as a sanding tool. They would then lift the block, a task requiring immense effort, and try the fit again. This cycle of placement, inspection, and grinding was repeated over and over, for days or even weeks for a single stone, until the contact was so complete that the two surfaces fused together through friction and gravity alone. The final critical element was the sheer mass of the stones themselves. Their immense weight, combined with their complex, interlocking polygonal shapes, created a structure that behaved as a single, unified mass. When an earthquake strikes, a modern wall fights the movement and it loses. An Inca wall embraces it. The stones in their intricate, three-dimensional jigsaw are designed to shift and sway as one, absorbing and dissipating the seismic energy. Then, when the tremor passes, gravity pulls each uniquely shaped block back into its original, perfect position. This is why, after 500 years of violent quakes, freezing cycles that expand and contract the rock, and torrential rains that would wash mortar away, these walls stand completely undisturbed. They were not built to resist nature's forces, but to dance with them, a secret to longevity that modern engineering is only now beginning to truly understand. This intricate jigsaw puzzle of stone may have been a powerful political statement carved in granite. The empire was called Tawantinsuyu, a name meaning the four parts united. Just as the empire was a collection of diverse ethnic groups, cultures, and landscapes all bound together under a single rule, the walls were a collection of uniquely shaped stones, each one different, all locked into a single, unshakable whole. Every block with its distinct angles and contours could symbolize a specific community, from the coastal fishermen to the highland potato farmers, from the jungle tribes to the mountain weavers. In this symbolic language, the stone walls were more than just fortifications. They were a three-dimensional map of the empire's social and political ideal. The perfect, mortarless fit was the ultimate expression of this unity, a declaration that the strength of the state came not from crushing diversity, but from fitting it together with such precision that the entire structure became indestructible. This transforms our understanding of the construction from a mere engineering feat into a profound act of cultural and political engineering. The stonemasons were not just builders, they were philosophers of stone, encoding the very principle of their civilization into every fortress and temple. The wall was a constant physical reminder to every citizen and every potential rival of the power of harmonious integration. It was a metaphor made manifest, teaching that a society, like a wall, could be both incredibly diverse and impossibly strong, so long as every part was perfectly keyed to support the others. What we see as a marvel of earthquake resistance, they may have seen as a symbol of social cohesion, a perfect society that could withstand any shock. This vertical control of the environment was the true empire's secret weapon. While their stonework defied earthquakes, their economic strategy defied famine itself through a concept known as the vertical archipelago. The Inca did not simply conquer territories, they intentionally seized control of entire mountain slopes, from the fertile valleys all the way up to the barren highlands, and even down to the distant Pacific coast. Each of these elevation zones was a distinct ecological island, producing resources impossible to find anywhere else. The frigid highlands grew hardy potatoes and supported herds of alpacas for wool. The temperate valleys were perfect for cultivating maize and quinoa. The lush cloud forests provided precious fruits and woods, and the arid coast yielded a bounty of fish, salt, and spicy ají peppers. This was not a collection of random provinces, but a single, continental-scale production line engineered by the state. The genius was in the connectivity. The sprawling Quhapac-Nyan road system became the empire's circulatory system, and the state-organized llama caravans were its lifeblood. Imagine a constant, flowing stream of goods moving along these stone-paved highways. Dried fish from the coast would be carried up to protein-starved highland garrisons. Bales of warm alpaca wool would descend to communities in the cooler valleys. Bags of coca leaves, essential for ritual and for combating altitude sickness, would travel from the eastern slopes to every corner of the empire. This was risk management engineered on a grand scale. If a frost destroyed the potato harvest in one highland region, the state could deploy maize reserves from the valleys. If a drought struck the cornfields, salted fish from the coast could fill the gap. No single ecological disaster could cripple the entire system because its resources were deliberately spread across 1,000 miles of vertical geography. This was not just a political achievement, it was a logistical miracle, a form of biological insurance that turned the entire Andes into a single, resilient, and endlessly adaptable superorganism. High above the terraced city, the Inca Picchu, or Sun Gate, stands as a silent sentinel carved from the mountain itself. This is not a simple archway, but a masterfully constructed stone gateway, its trapezoidal frame echoing the sacred geometry found in every Inca temple and fortress. Its position is a stroke of strategic genius, placed at the final crest of the ancient trail where weary travelers would get their first, breathtaking view of Machu Picchu spread out in the valley below. For any pilgrim, merchant, or official approaching the city, this gate was the ultimate checkpoint, a physical and symbolic threshold that separated the mundane world from the sacred sanctuary. But its true purpose reaches far beyond controlling human traffic. The Inca Picchu is a celestial instrument engineered in stone. Its construction was so precise that on the morning of the winter solstice in June, the rising sun would align perfectly with the gateway's opening. A shaft of golden light would spear through the stone frame, illuminating the main pathway leading directly into the heart of the city. Imagine the dramatic spectacle for those waiting within Machu Picchu, watching as a river of sunlight poured through the distant gate, a divine announcement that the sun had reached its turning point and would now begin its journey back, promising longer days and the renewal of life. This was architecture in dialogue with the cosmos, a calendar carved from the horizon that used the sun itself to mark the most important dates of the year. The gate did not merely allow people to pass, it allowed the sun to perform a sacred ritual, blending the practical need for control with a profound astronomical ceremony that connected the city directly to the heavens. The same hands that shaped monolithic stones also mastered the Earth's glittering veins. To extract the gold, silver, and copper that would become the empire's sacred skin, the Inca developed a sophisticated suite of mining techniques that turned entire mountainsides into industrial quarries. Without iron picks or dynamite, they relied on an intimate understanding of the rock itself. One of their primary methods was fire setting. Workers would build intense, controlled fires directly against the mineral-rich rock face. Once the stone was superheated, they would douse it with cold water, causing a violent thermal shock that fractured the rock along its natural fault lines. Then, armies of laborers wielding simple but effective stone hammers would move in, breaking the weakened rock into manageable pieces to expose the precious metal ores within. In areas with alluvial deposits, they employed large-scale hydraulic mining, a breathtaking display of water management. They would channel mountain streams through stone canals, directing powerful jets of water to blast away entire hillsides of soil and gravel, washing away the earth to reveal the heavier flakes of gold and silver that settled at the bottom. This was mining by erosion, a patient, systematic sculpting of the landscape to reveal its hidden treasures, but extracting the ore was only the first step. The true metallurgical genius began at the smelting sites. The Inca constructed sophisticated furnaces, often using clay-lined pits, and forced air from foot bellows to achieve the incredibly high temperatures needed to separate metal from rock. They were not just melting metal, they were purifying it, and they understood the power of alloying. By mixing gold with copper, they created tumbaga, a stronger, harder material that was easier to cast into intricate shapes while still maintaining a brilliant golden surface. This mastery allowed them to produce not only sublime ceremonial objects, but also highly functional tools. They crafted bronze crowbars and chisels strong enough for quarrying stone, copper-tipped digging sticks for farming, and lethal star-headed maces and tumi knives for warfare. The sheer scale of their production was an industrial marvel that left the Spanish conquistadors utterly dumbfounded. They wrote of entire temples like the Coricancha, whose walls were sheathed in solid, hammered gold plates so that the interior glowed with a divine, buttery light. They described life-sized statues of llamas and cornstalks, all fashioned from pure gold and silver, standing in sacred gardens. This was not merely wealth, it was a form of alchemy, a transformation of the earth's raw materials into a physical manifestation of the sun and moon on earth, a technological achievement that fueled both the empire's economy and its most profound spiritual expressions. Deep within a remote mountainside, the cave of Nopa Iglesia presents a paradox of shadow and precision. Here, the Inca did not build upward toward the sky, but inward into the very heart of the earth, carving a sanctuary with the same flawless accuracy they achieved in the open air. The centerpiece of this cavern is a breathtaking trapezoidal niche, a perfect, sharp-angled frame cut directly into the solid rock wall. Its surfaces are so unnaturally smooth, so impossibly flat, that they appear to have been polished by modern machinery, not shaped by stone tools in near-total darkness. This was subterranean engineering, and it posed a unique and profound set of challenges. How did artisans achieve such geometric perfection when they could not step back to survey their work, when their world was limited to the flickering light of a simple oil lamp? The confined space ruled out the use of large teams or sweeping movements. Every strike of the hammer, every grinding pass with abrasive sand, had to be measured and precise, executed by a single, highly skilled craftsperson working in utter isolation. This suggests the development of specialized, likely smaller tools designed specifically for the tight quarters of a cave, and a method of measurement that relied on touch and shadow as much as sight. They might have used taut strings to check for straight lines and carved stone templates to ensure the consistency of the sacred trapezoidal shape. But why commit such immense effort to a place hidden from the sun? The answer likely lies in the deepest currents of Inca belief. Caves were considered portals to the underworld, the womb of Pachamama, and a direct conduit to the ancestral world. By carving a perfect, sun-like form into this dark, primal space, the Inca were performing a profound act of symbolic balance. They were bringing the order of the celestial realm into the chaos of the earth, uniting the upper and lower worlds in a single, flawless stone altar. This was more than a shrine, it was a cosmological anchor, an engineered prayer that sought to harmonize the entire universe from the darkness at its core. The lifeblood of the empire flowed not just through its mountains, but through the very streets of its capital. Cusco was engineered around a sophisticated hydraulic network that channeled the Tulumayo and Safi rivers through the city's heart. The Inca did not let these waterways run wild. They tamed them, lining the riverbanks with immaculate stone walls that transformed the natural currents into precise, controlled canals. This was not merely a utility, it was a circulatory system for a living city, delivering fresh water and carrying away waste with an efficiency that would be the envy of many ancient civilizations. How did they ensure water reached the highest districts of the city without a single pump? The entire system was a masterpiece of gravitational engineering. The canals were built with a meticulously calculated and consistent gradient, just steep enough to maintain a steady, self-cleaning flow that prevented stagnation, yet gentle enough to avoid erosive force. At critical junctions, stone distribution boxes acted like ancient control valves. These were carefully carved basins where the main flow could be split into smaller channels, directing water to the royal palaces, the temples of the Coricancha, and the residential districts according to a strict hierarchy of need and status. The pressure was managed by the channel's dimensions themselves, its width and depth calibrated to maintain an equilibrium that delivered water reliably to fountains and reservoirs across the urban landscape. This urban blueprint, perfected in the capital, became the model for the entire empire. The same principles of stone-lined canals, gravitational flow, and centralized distribution were replicated in every major administrative center, from the high-altitude plains of Huánuco Pampa to the remote ridges of Choqquequirao. It was a testament to a centralized engineering knowledge so powerful that it could design an entire city around the simple, unerring pull of gravity, turning the flow of water into the rhythm of daily life for thousands. This same mastery of the landscape finds expression on a canvas of staggering scale far to the south. Etched across the arid plains of the Nazca Desert, a sprawling gallery of geoglyphs defies both logic and time. Created by a pre-Inca culture, these lines and figures speak to an ancient engineering spirit that would later be perfected in the Andes. The method of their creation appears deceptively simple. The desert floor here is covered with a layer of dark, oxidized stones and gravel. To create the lines, workers simply removed these surface stones, revealing the light-colored, sandy soil beneath. The contrast between the dark stones and the pale sand creates the visible design, a technique that sounds straightforward until you comprehend the sheer magnitude of the project. We are not talking about small sketches. These are immense, perfectly straight lines that run for miles across the desert floor, arrows straight over hills and valleys without deviating an inch. Others form complex geometric shapes, trapezoids and triangles so vast you could fit multiple city blocks inside them. And then there are the biomorphs, the colossal figures of a hummingbird, a spider, a monkey, and a condor, each one drawn with a single, unbroken line that curves and loops with the fluidity of a pen stroke, but on a scale of hundreds of feet. The precision required to execute these forms over such distances is what transforms this from simple artistry into a profound feat of engineering. How did they maintain perfect proportions and alignment when the full image is only comprehensible from a vantage point high in the air, a perspective the artists themselves could never have achieved? The answer lies in a breathtaking mastery of surveying and large-scale project management. The Nazca engineers likely broke down each massive figure into a series of smaller, manageable segments. Using a central axis line and a system of stakes and ropes, they could have plotted out the design on a smaller scale and then scaled it up, section by section, across the desert. They would have used simple sighting tools, perhaps aligning themselves with distant mountain peaks to keep their lines perfectly straight over the undulating terrain. The coordination of labor would have been immense, requiring teams of workers to clear the stones according to the master plan, all while being unable to see the emerging masterpiece taking shape beneath their feet. The result is an enduring enigma, a monumental act of faith and precision that turned an entire desert into a sacred diagram, a message to the gods written in the very skin of the earth. A message could travel from the farthest edge of the empire to the emperor's ear faster than a galloping horse. This impossible speed was the genius of the Chasqui runners, a living, breathing communication network engineered from human endurance. The system's backbone was the tambo, a series of way stations constructed at precise intervals along the Quhapac-Ñan, the great Inca road. These were not grand fortresses, but small, Spartan posts strategically placed every 1.5 miles, a distance calculated as the maximum a runner could sprint at high altitude without exhausting his breath. At any given moment, 2 runners were on duty at each tambo, maintaining a state of constant readiness. When a messenger approached from the previous station, the waiting runner would hear the blast of a conch shell trumpet or a shout echoing through the mountain pass. He would step out, already moving, and the incoming runner would transfer the verbal message without breaking stride, reciting it in a memorized, rhythmic chant. For physical items, like a parcel of fresh coastal fish destined for the Sapa Inca's table, the handoff was just as seamless. The relay was a continuous, human chain of motion. This meant the message never stopped day or night, in blistering sun or torrential rain. It moved at a sustained running pace across some of the most treacherous terrain on the planet. To cover the 1,200 miles from Quito to Cusco in under a week, the message had to travel over 170 miles every single day. A lone runner, no matter how fit, would be defeated by the mountains, but an engineered system of fresh legs and precise logistics made it routine. The chasquis were not just messengers, they were highly trained components in a biological machine. They grew up near the roads, acclimated to the thin air, and knew every twist and turn of their section. They carried a pututu shell to announce their approach and a quipu, a set of knotted cords, to record numerical information. How could they run such distances so reliably? The tambos also served as supply depots, stocked with food, water, and spare sandals, ensuring the runners themselves were as well maintained as the road they sprinted upon. This was the empire's nervous system, a testament to the idea that the most advanced technology is not always made of metal and wire, but can be built from the disciplined human spirit, synchronized to perfection. Within the most sacred temples, the stone itself was given veins. These were not the grand aqueducts of Tepan, but miniature channels, hair-thin grooves carved with impossible precision into the granite altars and ceremonial platforms. In the Coricancha, along the walls of mountain huacas, and across the surfaces of sacred outcrops, these delicate pathways transformed solid rock into a conduit for the most profound offerings. The engineering challenge here was one of miniature scale and absolute control. Each channel had to be carved with a perfect, consistent gradient, a slope so slight it is invisible to the naked eye, yet calculated to guide a trickle of liquid along a predetermined sacred path without a single drop straying out of place. The carvers used stone tools and abrasive sand to grind these grooves, their hands guided by a generational knowledge of fluid dynamics that understood how surface tension and gravity could be harnessed to direct a flow of water, chicha, or even sacrificial blood. This was hydraulic engineering in its most intimate form. During a ceremony, a priest would pour the offering into a small basin at the channel's head. The liquid would not simply spill, it would obey the stone, tracing a deliberate, symbolic route across the altar. It might flow in a zigzag pattern representing lightning, or circle a sacred symbol before disappearing into a small hole that plunged directly into the earth. This final destination was the entire point, a symbolic return of the offering to Pachamama, the Earth Mother. The channel ensured the liquid did not pool or evaporate, but completed its sacred journey into the womb of the world. This fusion of spiritual intent and micro-engineering reveals a civilization that saw no distinction between the flow of water and the flow of divine energy, building tiny, perfect rivers in stone to maintain the balance of the cosmos itself. The fortress of Sacsayhuaman was far more than an unshakable wall. It was a three-dimensional death trap designed from the ground up for total warfare. Its iconic zigzagging ramparts were a masterstroke of defensive geometry. Rather than presenting a single, flat barrier for attackers to assault, the walls broke the advance into a series of deadly funnels. An invading force would find itself channeled into narrow corridors of stone, completely exposed to a storm of projectiles from three distinct levels. Defenders on the upper terraces could fire down upon them, while soldiers on the middle and lower levels could launch spears and sling stones from the sides, creating a crossfire that left no place to hide. This was not a simple wall to scale, it was a layered killing field where every angle was covered. But the true genius of this fortress lay within the stones themselves. Hidden behind the imposing facade was a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers, a secret world woven into the fortress's heart. These were not random cavities, but engineered spaces that served as armories for stockpiling sling stones and spears, secure barracks for resting troops, and concealed passageways that allowed defenders to move swiftly and unseen from one sector of the battle to another. A soldier could disappear into a shadowy entrance and emerge moments later on the far side of the defenses, creating the illusion of a much larger garrison and allowing for devastating flanking maneuvers. Finally, controlling access to this entire system were the massive, circular stone doors. These were not hinged gates, but enormous, perfectly balanced stone discs that rolled within carved stone tracks. In times of peace, they stood open, but when threatened, defenders could leverage them into position. sealing key passageways with a barrier of solid rock that was utterly impervious to battering rams or fire. This was defensive architecture conceived as a single, living organism where the walls were a weapon, the interior was a hidden circulatory system, and every entrance could be sealed with a stone more permanent than time itself. High upon the world's highest navigable lake, an entire civilization learned to walk on water. The Uros people of Lake Titicaca did not conquer their environment with stone, but by weaving with it, creating a floating world from the most humble of materials, the totora reed. While this tradition predates and was continued by the Aymara people, it represents a form of aquatic engineering the Inca Empire would have certainly encountered and deeply respected, a brilliant solution to a landless existence. The entire process begins with the very foundation of life here, the dense beds of totora that grow in the shallow lake waters. To build an island, the Uros first gather the roots of these reeds, which form a naturally buoyant, tangled mass called a kili. They cut large blocks of this root mat and lash them together with ropes and wooden stakes. Then they pile layer upon layer of dried totora reeds on top, crisscrossing them to create a thick, springy platform that can be up to 2 meters thick. But a floating mat is not an island. The true engineering lies in the anchoring system. Each island is moored to the bottom of the lake using several long ropes tied to heavy eucalyptus wood stakes driven deep into the lake bed. This is a critical design feature, not to hold the island in one rigid spot, but to allow it just enough movement. The anchors prevent the island from drifting away in the fierce lake winds, yet they permit a gentle, yielding sway that absorbs the energy of the waves, preventing the reed layers from being torn apart. This flexible tethering is what gives the islands their resilience, yet this is not a one-time construction. It is a continuous, symbiotic relationship with the water. The reeds at the bottom of the platform are constantly saturated and rotting away, while new, dry reeds are added to the top. The entire community must work together, week after week, to replenish the surface. A family might spend a morning cutting fresh totora and an afternoon carefully weaving a new layer over their living room floor. If they stop, their world literally dissolves beneath their feet. The houses, the watchtowers, and even the community boats are all crafted from these same reeds, creating a fully integrated ecosystem where every single component is biodegradable, renewable, and perfectly adapted to the aquatic world. This is a form of living architecture, a testament to the idea that the most profound engineering is not always about defying nature with eternal stone, but about learning to float upon its ever-changing surface. Surviving at an altitude of over 12,000 feet required more than just strong walls. It demanded a way to outsmart the very climate. On the high plains surrounding Lake Titicaca, the Inca and their predecessors engineered a landscape that seems to breathe, a grid of earth and water known as waru waru. This was not conventional farming, but a sophisticated dialogue with the sun and frost. They sculpted the flat, vulnerable plains into a series of wide, raised planting beds, each one surrounded by deep, water-filled canals. The genius of this design is a perfect loop of thermal regulation. During the day, the dark water in the canals acted as a massive solar battery, absorbing the intense high-altitude sunlight and storing its heat. Then, as the frigid night descended and temperatures plummeted, that stored warmth would radiate upward from the water, enveloping the raised beds in an invisible, protective blanket of slightly warmer air. This microclimate was often just enough to shield delicate potato and quinoa seedlings from a killing frost, a life-saving difference engineered from mud and water. But the canals did far more than just store heat. They were a self-sustaining nutrient system. Aquatic plants would grow in the channels, and farmers would periodically dredge this rich, silty mud and pile it onto the raised beds, constantly replenishing the soil with organic matter and minerals without any need for external fertilizer. The canals also provided a steady source of irrigation during dry spells and acted as drainage during the rainy season, preventing the fields from becoming waterlogged. This was closed-loop, sustainable agriculture in one of the world's most challenging environments, a technology that turned a marginal, frost-prone plateau into a productive breadbasket by harnessing the simple, relentless physics of heat and water. The very stones the Inca shaped tell a story of their own, a narrative of patient force and forgotten finesse. To understand their process, we must first dismiss our modern assumptions about power tools and diamond-tipped blades. The Inca toolkit was one of profound simplicity, built from the world around them. The most fundamental tool was the river cobble, a simple, hard stone picked from a riverbed and wielded as a hammer. Workers would strike the granite or andesite block with these cobbles, not to cut it but to pulverize it, pounding the surface until it fractured along its natural crystalline lines. This was not a swift process. For the rough shaping of a colossal block, teams of laborers would have spent weeks, even months, in a relentless, percussive dance, reducing the stone to its general form, one shattered crystal at a time. For finer work, they graduated to bronze chisels. These were not the sharp, hardened steel chisels we know today, but softer bronze points. A craftsperson would hold the bronze tip against the stone and strike it with a stone hammer. The bronze, being softer than the granite, would dull and deform with each blow, but in doing so, it would act as a sacrificial intermediary, transmitting the force of the impact and efficiently flaking away tiny slivers of the harder rock. It was a process of constant replacement and meticulous, incremental progress. But the true secret to their impossible precision lies in the final stage, the finishing work. Here, the primary tool was not a hammer or a chisel, but simple, abrasive sand. After a block was pounded and chiseled to a near-final shape, workers would use a flat stone or a piece of leather, along with sand and water, to grind the surface. They would rub this sandy slurry back and forth for untold hours, grinding down the high spots, polishing the stone to a smooth, often gleaming finish. This explains how they achieved those seamless joints, a testament to an almost unimaginable investment of time and human effort. Yet, even this comprehensive explanation leaves gaps in the stone. How did they create perfectly smooth, concave curves on some niches, surfaces so uniform they appear machine-turned? How did they drill perfectly cylindrical holes through solid granite, holes that are clean and consistent in diameter? The conventional tools of cobble, bronze, and sand seem inadequate for such delicate, focused work. This lingering mystery suggests the possibility of lost techniques or specialized tools that have not survived in the archaeological record. Perhaps they used tubular drills made of reed or hollowed wood, spun with a bow while using abrasive sand as a cutting agent. Maybe they discovered a method of focused thermal shock, using heat not to fracture large slabs, but to subtly soften a tiny area for finer carving. The stones themselves hold the answers, but they remain silent, their surfaces a permanent question mark carved in granite. Behind every impossible stone lies a greater marvel still, the human machinery that made it possible. The true foundation of Sacsayhuaman was not its deepest layer of bedrock, but a logistical network that spanned a continent, an empire-wide system for mobilizing and sustaining human effort on a scale that rivals modern megaprojects. This was the mita, a rotational labor tax that was the beating heart of the Inca state. Every household across the vast territory of Tawantinsuyu, you owed a certain number of days each year to the state, not in coins or crops but in physical work. A farmer from the coast might spend a season quarrying stone in the highlands, while a weaver from the mountains might be conscripted to help build a terrace on a distant slope. This was not slavery, but a mandatory civic duty, a form of taxation that built the empire literally from the ground up. The genius of the system was its organization and its fairness. The state did not simply take workers and abandon their families. While a man was fulfilling his mita, his community was exempt from other taxes, and his own fields were tended by his neighbors. The state provided the food, the tools, and the shelter for the duration of the project. This transformed a potential burden into a source of communal pride and a direct investment in the empire's infrastructure. Imagine the coordination required to manage tens of thousands of these rotating workers on a project like Sacsayhuaman, which spanned multiple generations. The flow of labor had to be constant, a river of human strength that never ran dry. This required a bureaucracy of stunning efficiency, one that could track the labor obligations of millions of people across thousands of miles without a single written ledger. The solution was the quipu, a complex device of knotted cords where the position, type, and number of knots recorded vast quantities of data, from population counts to resource inventories. Through the quipu, administrators knew exactly how many workers were due from each province when they would arrive and what skills they possessed. This data-driven management extended to the worksite itself. Feeding an army of laborers was a project as immense as the construction. Supply caravans organized by the state were in perpetual motion along the Quhapak-Nyan. Llama trains carried dried potatoes and freeze-dried meat from the highland storehouses, maize and beans from the Sacred Valley, and fresh fish rushed inland by chasqui runners for the elite overseers. At the base of the fortress, temporary cities of thatched huts would have sprung up, complete with their own water channels, kitchens, and storage depots, all engineered to support the single monumental task at hand. The project managers, the master architects of the state, did not just design walls, they designed a human ecosystem. They broke the colossal project down into manageable phases, assigning specialized teams to specific tasks. One group, the strongest and most experienced, would be dedicated to quarrying. Another, skilled in the art of fitting, would work on the final placement of the stones. Yet another team would be responsible for maintaining the ramps and roads for transport. This was a precursor to the assembly line and modern critical path analysis, a systematic breakdown of labor that turned chaos into a symphony of coordinated effort. The stone itself is the proof of this organizational genius. The sheer consistency of the work, the unvarying perfection of the joints across decades and across different teams of workers, points to a standardized system of training and quality control that was passed down through generations. The final, breathtaking wall is not just a monument to stonemasons, but to accountants, quartermasters, and managers, the unseen engineers who built an empire not with stone, but with the flawless organization of human will. The very streets of Cusco were laid out as a colossal, sacred symbol. From the high hills, the ancient capital was engineered to resemble the silhouette of a puma, the most powerful predator of the Andes. This was not a casual metaphor, but a deliberate act of cosmological engineering, a city designed as a living, breathing animal. The converging waters of the Tolumayo and Safi rivers were meticulously channeled through stone-lined canals to trace the spine of this great beast, the life-giving artery flowing through its center. And at its head, perched on the dominant northern ridge, loomed the fortress of Sacsayhuaman, its jagged, zigzagging walls forming the jagged teeth of the puma, a permanent snarl of defiance aimed at any who would threaten the empire's heart. But how intentional was this design? Some modern scholars suggest the puma shape is a post-conquest interpretation, a beautiful story layered onto a city that grew organically. Yet, whether the initial plan was a literal blueprint or a spiritual concept that guided its expansion, the outcome is the same. The Inca world. You did not separate the urban from the natural or the practical from the divine. To them, a city was not just a place for people to live. It was an extension of the living landscape, a physical prayer. The puma represented strength, agility, and earthly power. By shaping their capital in its image, they were not just building a city, they were invoking the spirit of the animal into the very stones, weaving its essence into the daily lives of every citizen who walked its streets. This was the ultimate expression of their belief, a testament to a civilization that saw its built environment as a sacred map, a direct reflection of the natural and spiritual order they revered. Their most sacred offerings were made not in temples but in the sky itself. High on the summits of the Andean peaks, the Inca built shrines to the Apus, the mountain gods who controlled the weather and the very fate of the empire. These were not simple stone piles, but meticulously constructed platforms and enclosures perched at altitudes that push the limits of human survival, often above 20,000 feet. The air here is so thin it feels like breathing through a straw, and the cold is a constant, biting force. Just climbing to these heights is a monumental feat of endurance, but the Inca did not just climb, they built. They transported massive stone blocks, wooden beams, and all the materials for ceremonial platforms up these vertical, icy slopes. The logistics of this effort are almost beyond comprehension. Teams of dedicated laborers and priests would have made the agonizing ascent, carrying these heavy supplies on their backs, their progress measured in painful, gasping steps. They were not just carrying stone, they were carrying their civilization's most profound hopes directly to the doorstep of the gods, and at these ultimate altars they left their most precious gifts. On the summit of Mount Lulelaco, archaeologists discovered the frozen, perfectly preserved bodies of 3 children, a boy and 2 girls, who were offered in a state ritual known as capacacha. They were dressed in fine textiles, accompanied by an exquisite collection of gold and silver figurines, miniature llamas, and pots of food. These were not hasty sacrifices. The children were selected from noble families, fattened up for a year, and then taken on a long pilgrimage, likely from Cusco, all the way to the summit of that distant volcano. The entire journey was a sacred procession, a final, slow ascent to apotheoses. The discovery of these mummies, their faces peaceful and their offerings intact, represents the pinnacle of Inca devotion. It was a statement of ultimate faith, a belief so powerful that it drove them to execute a complex, state-sponsored engineering project in one of the most hostile environments on the planet, all to ensure the favor of the mountain spirits. This fusion of spiritual conviction and logistical mastery is perhaps their most staggering marvel, a testament to a civilization that would literally move mountains to touch the divine. The Spanish conquistadors arrived with steel and gunpowder, determined to build a new world upon the ruins of the old. Yet for all their technological might, they faced an undeniable truth. The Inca foundations they sought to erase were far stronger than anything they could create themselves. Across Cusco, a profound architectural compromise began to take shape. Rather than demolish the impossibly perfect walls of the Coricancha, they simply built the Church of Santo Domingo directly on top of them. They filled the elegant trapezoidal niches with rubble and plastered over the flowing curves of the stonework, erecting their Baroque spires upon a base of ancient granite. This was not an act of reverence, but one of stark pragmatism. The Spanish had witnessed first and how these mortarless walls danced through earthquakes while their own rigid constructions crumbled. So they chose the most logical path. They let the enemy's genius bear the weight of their own conquest. This created a startling visual dialogue that still defines the city today. Walk through the streets of Cusco and you will see it everywhere, a rough, crumbling colonial wall of brick and mortar sitting uneasily upon a foundation of sublime, seamless Inca stone. The line between the two is a stark dividing line in history. The lower courses, with their complex polygonal joints, are as solid as the day they were laid. The upper sections, bound by brittle mortar, are often cracked and patched, a perpetual maintenance problem. This fusion was more than just practical, it was deeply symbolic. The new colonial order, for all its imposed power, was quite literally supported by the indestructible engineering of the civilization it sought to replace. The Inca stones became the silent, unyielding bedrock of the Spanish city, a permanent reminder of a mastery that could be covered but never truly erased. This legacy is a quiet marvel of endurance where the true foundation of modern Cusco is not European, but Inca, a world of perfect stone still holding up the world above. These 50 marvels stand before us, yet their deepest secrets remain locked within the stone. The greatest enigma is not what they built, but precisely how they built it. We can theorize about stone hammers and abrasive sand, but the methods for achieving those impossible, mirror-smooth surfaces and perfectly drilled holes in granite continue to elude us. We can map the ramps and calculate the thousands of workers needed, but the sheer physics of maneuvering a 100-ton block across a river and up a mountain defies our most detailed logistical models. Did they possess a form of advanced mathematics, a geometric principle for stress distribution that we have yet to rediscover? Were there specialized tools, perhaps made from a material that has not survived the centuries, that allowed for such flawless execution? And just how profound was their astronomical wisdom? The alignments at the Coricancha and the Intihuatana are clear, but did their celestial knowledge extend to cycles and patterns that we are only now beginning to detect with our satellites and computers? The true magnitude of the loss is not in the gold the Spanish melted down, but in the evaporation of this sophisticated engineering consciousness. The master architects took their final secrets with them, leaving behind a world of silent, magnificent puzzles. These structures are not just ruins, they are a permanent question, a challenge from the past that continues to humble our modern understanding of what is possible. 50 marvels stand as a testament to a civilization that saw no boundary between the earth and the sky, the practical and the divine. From the earthquake-proof polygonal walls of Sacsayhuaman to the gravity-fed fountains of Machu Picchu, from the continent spanning Capac Ñan to the floating islands of Titicaca, the evidence is overwhelming. This was not merely construction, it was a form of alchemy, a way of weaving human life so perfectly into the fabric of the Andes that their work has endured for centuries. They reshaped mountains into laboratories, turned rivers into calendars, and wove bridges from grass, all without the wheel, iron tools, or a written language as we know it. These achievements collectively challenge our most fundamental assumptions about technology and progress. We live in an age of computers and steel, yet we still struggle to replicate the seismic resilience of their mortarless walls or the flawless hydraulic equilibrium of their water channels. Their greatest genius may not lie in any single technique, but in a holistic worldview where engineering, astronomy, agriculture, and spirituality were inseparable parts of a single harmonious system. They did not fight nature, they listened to it, and in doing so, they built a world that moved with the earth rather than against it. So we are left with one final, compelling question. Was their ultimate secret an unimaginable investment of patient labor, a lost knowledge of sound or vibration, or a profound spiritual connection that allowed them to see the world in a way we have since forgotten? What do you believe was the true source of the Inca's impossible genius? Share your theories in the comments below and subscribe as we continue our journey to unravel the deepest mysteries of our ancient world. Modern engineers have attempted to recreate these ancient feats with all the advantages of contemporary knowledge, yet the stones refuse to yield their secrets easily. In one notable experiment, a team tried to transport a 10-ton block of andesite, a fraction of the size of the stones at Ollantaytambo, using only ropes, log rollers, and the power of a large volunteer crew. They succeeded, but the process was agonizingly slow and fraught with peril, requiring constant adjustments to prevent the stone from slipping and crushing the workers. The sheer physical toll and the immense coordination needed for just one small block laid bare the staggering challenge of moving stones 5 times that weight. Even more humbling are the attempts to replicate the stone shaping itself. Using stone hammers and abrasive sand, skilled artisans have managed to shape granite over weeks of painstaking labor, yet the resulting surfaces are often rough and pitted, lacking the mirror-like finish and the impossibly tight joints found on Inca walls. The level of precision we can achieve with primitive tools seems to fall just short of the perfection the Inca accomplished routinely. These modern struggles do not solve the mystery, they deepen it. They force us to confront a profound question. Was their success simply a matter of having more patience and more people, a scale of labor we cannot fathom today? Or did they possess a nuanced, lost technique, a specific way of striking the stone or a forgotten understanding of its crystalline structure that allowed them to work with an efficiency we have not yet rediscovered? Every failed experiment, every rough-hewn modern copy, only increases our respect for the builders who achieved the impossible not once, but across an entire